Good evening and welcome to our webinar on facility improvement updates. This is Monday, January 27th, 2020, and I'm joined here tonight by Board President. My name's Dave Hagelin, Superintendent of Pleasant Unified School District. I'm joined here tonight by Board President Steve Maher.
Good evening.
And Assistant Superintendent Ahmed Sheikh-Oslam.
Good evening.
By way of orientation for tonight's webinar, just want to make sure that you look down on your screen and you can see the opportunity to participate in Q&A. So anytime during the webinar, you can click the button that says Q&A and submit a question. We will answer as many questions as we can after we go through our presentation. We've allotted 60 minutes for the webinar. We'll get to as many questions as we can, and any that are left over, we will combine together as an FAQ document that will be posted on the website so that all of the questions are addressed. There's no need to raise your hand. Just go ahead and put your question right in the little box after you click on Q&A. Tonight, we're going to do some highlights on the district. We're going to look at facility and measure I1 progress and upcoming projects. We're going to look at school facility projects and tax information for the proposed measure M, and then we're going to allow for time for the Q&A. So just a little bit of celebration as we begin our webinar tonight, and that's that Pleasanton schools continue to outperform their peer districts in Alameda County, so much so that the district is the #1 performing district in Alameda County. It's the #5 school district in the Bay Area and the #11 school district in the state of California. By way of context, that's 11 out of a little over 1,000 school districts in the state. We also are home to the #1 elementary school in Alameda County. So kudos to our friends at Fairlands Elementary School, as well as the #1 middle school in Alameda County. And congratulations to the staff, students, and families at Harvest Park. And the #1 high school in Alameda County, Amador Valley High School. Not to be bested too much, Foothill High School is the #2. And so we're looking for some competition in this next school year as the rankings come out. We've been hard at work in the district, and we're going to talk a little bit about that work tonight. I just wanted to briefly highlight the Prop 39 projects that we've already accomplished, the HVAC replacements at Pleasanton Middle School, the Amador Valley solar parking structure, and high efficiency exterior lighting at various school sites. And why I wanted to point that out is that those projects were also listed as projects in Measure I1. And by leveraging state Prop 39 dollars, we were able to assign those costs to the grant, and that freed up additional dollars for remaining projects in Measure I1. You'll note across town that there are signs at the school sites outlining the various efforts that are being made at those school sites over the course of the Measure I1 project period. And you'll note that the example shown here even has the indicator when a project's been complete. So as we continue to make progress, you can expect to see more complete signs on those signs across town. So I want to turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Sheikh-Oslam, who's going to review additional projects from Measure I1.
Thank you. I'm happy to report that we've made great progress on the projects. Critical have been some of the security fencing work that you have already seen up at Moore, Fairlands, and Harvest Park. In addition, we've also been working on the background on some of our network projects, infrastructure and fiber optics to the schools. We've been acquiring technology devices for our students and staff and paying off our COP. So we're really excited about the work we've done. And behind the scenes, we've been planning and designing some of the 5 large projects, which I'm going to discuss next. So first and most important is our promise from the 98-99 bond was to rebuild Leidixon Elementary School. This is a beautiful campus located in a beautiful area of our city, but the school needs much updating. So in this project, we're going to be building classroom buildings, new administration, new kindergarten wing and library, playground space, more parking and drop-off, and a lot of landscaping for outdoor learning. So this is a key cornerstone project that we're going to begin in February with rebuilding the parking lot and then phasing in through the rest of the school and completing the project for fall of 2021. The next two projects are also really exciting, and both of these projects will expand our 21st century learning environments with science classroom buildings at Amador and Foothill. Both of these projects, the Amador one, as you can see in the large red rooftop, is a new building that'll be placed next to the multi-purpose building. And that will, again, take the pressure off of the school, creating new science classrooms and allowing us to remove classroom portables that are currently on the basketball courts. At Foothill, we're also building a science classroom that will be placed at the entry of the school where currently there's a lawn area. That building too is scheduled to begin this summer and open up fall of 2021. And it will allow portable classrooms that are currently on our fields to be removed and allowing students to utilize the field to its full use. So those are two great science projects that are currently completed design, and DSA, the Division of State Architect, is reviewing the plans, and as soon as they come out, they'll be bid and we'll move into construction. The fourth major project, which is really an exciting project that has been in the planning stage for a while and now we're moving into design development, is the construction of a new elementary school. We're calling it number 10 for now, and it's located on the Donlin campus. The district went through an extensive process through which they looked at options of increasing our capacity. Many of our students in the Donlin attendance area are having to go to school at other elementary schools. So one of the ideas that came up was we can keep all the students in the attendance boundary in the same place if we build a new school on that property, and it'll house the 4th and 5th grade students. So all the students will attend the current Donlin school for TK3 and then move over to the new school for the 4th and 5th. And in addition to having many of its own facilities, such as the administration, the library, and nice classrooms, and a drop-off pickup, there'll be some shared space like the field. So we're kind of really getting best of both worlds with new spaces, sharing facilities where it makes sense, and really giving all students an opportunity to take advantage of the new school. Construction is slated to begin summer of 2021 with opening in fall of 2022. And then the 5th large project we have is the construction of new science labs at Hart Middle School. This is currently moving into the design phase. We just selected our architect and we'll begin working with the site committee on it's going to be either a single story or 2-story. We're still working on that. It will provide new science classrooms, and it will then remodel the existing science classrooms to regular classrooms. And this again is to provide 21st century learning environments for our students. Relocating will remove the existing portables on site and also allow for better parking and drop-off pickup as well. The next slide, although there's a lot of information on it, the key thing that we want you to take away is we have actually accelerated the 5 major projects which I just went through and bringing them to as soon as possible. And then during the summers, we're hitting the fencing projects, fire alarm, any network upgrades, doing things, roofing and HVAC, things that are really difficult to do during the school year, we're hitting in the summer. But the main projects are being front loaded and allowing us to actually complete the project 3 years ahead of schedule by 23-24 rather than 26-27, which was the original plan. And this will require us to actually sell our bonds earlier than what was originally planned. So if you look at the original issuances, we were going to do it in 4 issuances, and now we've been able to increase issuance B, and we'll probably complete the work with a final issuance C at approximately $110 million. So that really, we're really excited about moving the projects forward, being ahead of schedule, and delivering the key projects to the community as soon as possible. The couple of other things I'd like to bring to your attention is that we've had our audit reports done annually for Measure I1, and that requires both a financial audit and a performance audit. And in the last audit, we got a clean bill of health from our auditor. And so we're really excited to be fiscally managing these projects in a very prudent and careful manner. Next, we've really taken advantage of our strong financial situation, both as a district and our assessed property values. And the district and its administration have been able to go to Moody's and go to S&P and advocate that our ratings be increased. And we've successfully done that for both Moody's and S&P. And that advocating and making sure we get the highest rating possible correlates to lower interest rates when we sell our bonds. And with lower interest rates, we then are able to lower the repayment on our taxpayers. So with as you refinance your home and you can take advantage of lower interest rates, it's exactly the same way for bonds. So when we kind of indicate that the assessed value and how much the cost would be, the lower the interest rate, the lower your property tax will be in repaying these bond debts. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Board President Maher to go over Measure M.
Before Mr. Maher starts, I just want to let everyone know that we are tracking the questions, and when we're done with the presentation, we'll circle back to the questions. Mr. Maher.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to speak for a few minutes about Measure M. That's moving forward and will be on the ballot come March, early March. As you can see, the Measure M project list, and the reason that we have this project list is many of the items, probably most of the items, were left over from I-1 that they couldn't narrow down to do all these projects. So starting, the first one would be, and this is for modernization and repair. Starting would be the upgrade remaining roofs and HVAC system. Next would be the replacement, modernization of high school gyms. On the left, you'll see Amador's side of their gym. On the right is the part of the weight room at Foothill High School that is out in the weather elements. So certainly those two need some privatization and modernization. Next is the modernize existing science labs. Replace, reseal paving concrete at the schools. You can see that when it rains, we have puddles and large masses of water, and some of our concrete is not level. We need to take care of that for safety. Replace and upgrade playgrounds at the schools. As you can see, some playgrounds are in much needed repair or modernization. Some dry rot. Upgrade playing fields at the schools. If you've been by, especially PMS, their field has now become Gopher City. And when the city did their huge project on Burnell, the ground squirrels and so forth, they moved next door along with the geese to Pleasant Middle School. And some of our other facilities are also in the same type shape. Repair and paint. This is not maintenance, but just repair, like some of the dry rot. If you've been by Pleasant Middle School, the beams across the entrance and throughout the school are in much needed repair. Then add capacity to support growth. And that could be possibly a a new STEM high school, which would be a facility that would not have a football field or a large gym, but would have classrooms for students that really are not into the comprehensive high school sports and athletics and so forth, but they want to take classes that really interest them in regards to STEM classes, which would be engineering, science, and so forth. We can build a possible high school that would house 600 to 700. This would reduce the size of our other two high schools because students would go to this STEM high school to receive training or classroom or education. Next, we are covered lunch shelters at schools. If you've been to Amador or many of our schools, the students have to eat out in temperatures that range certainly up close to 100 at certain times of the year, and certainly rain at other times of the year. So we'd like to build some covered areas and help our students health-wise. And then the last project that I'm really excited about is the modernize or build new high school theaters. On the left is the old Amador Theater, and currently the upstairs is not accessible because of OSHA restraints. So we just have the bottom portion, which only houses about 300. And it's a landmark at Pleasanton. We certainly want to keep it, but we want to work with the city of Pleasanton and refurbish and make it more usable for students and parents. On the right is Foothill, which does not have a theater. And this is their MP room. We'd like to put a nice theater there for the performances. As you know, Pleasanton is well known throughout the state for its bands, orchestras, productions, and we need to have facilities that can showcase these. So that would be another item on our project list.
Okay, so I'm going to cover some of the financials as related to Measure M. Measure M is for $323 million. The bond would be paid back over a 30-year period, beginning in 2022 when we sell the first bonds. The bonds have been estimated to cost our taxpayers approximately $43.10 per $100,000 of evaluation. So it's not how much your property is currently valued at, it's what is assessed with the assessor. Secondly, the interest rates where we have calculated the tax rate is a conservative between 4.25 and 5.75. And so that, that percentage is conservative because, as you saw, we just took advantage of lower interest rates, and lower interest rates would mean a lower tax rate for everyone. Anyone whose property was assessed, back in 1970s and such. So if your house is assessed at $100,000, you would be paying 43. If it's assessed at $500,000, it would be 43 times 5. The other thing to note here is that the district does have other bonds from Measure I-1 and others from further back. As those bonds are paid off, the rate will drop. So at its kind of average in the starting in 23 and on, it's about $88. Once Measure I-1 is paid off by 2042, it'll drop to $43. So that's just kind of a quick, brief overview of both the cost and the repayment schedule for Measure M.
So now it's time for us to address questions. And we've got a few up here that we'll begin addressing. And like I said, we will address the questions that we have answers to. If there's any questions we either don't get to because of time or we need additional information, we will include those questions as a part of a Q&A or FAQ that we'll post to the district website. And again, our goal tonight is to present information relating to the upgrades and the Measure I-1 projects and the rationale for Measure M. So the first question states for Leidixon, A, was a remodeling ever considered and priced out And B, why was it the first priority? So I will defer to Steve for the prioritization question, but I will state that all of the projects in Measure M that were added to the project list came out of the facilities master planning document that was created in 2015 and updated in 2018. Each time you go out for a bond, you update. Anytime you go out for a bond, you need to have an updated facilities master plan. And that master plan identifies necessary projects site by site and allows the district team and the board to be able to prioritize projects when they're establishing their project list for any potential measure. Leidexon was actually on the project list of a previous bond. And because of that, the board at the time, and this is prior to my arrival, which is why I'd like for Steve to jump in there, the board felt an obligation to the community to continue to work on that project list, which included the rebuild of Leidexon. Did you want to add anything to that?
If some of you are Pleasant residents for probably 20 plus years, you remember when we voted and passed the bond, we kind of systematically went through the schools and upgraded. We did Alisal, Vintage Hills, Donlin, Fairlands on the inside, and Leidexon was scheduled to also receive part of the funding for modernization and upgrade, and they just ran out of money. Now, I wasn't on the board, certainly. I was principal of one of the schools, but at that time, Leidexon was kind of the only school that was left out of the modernization and remodeling. And so when the facilities and master planning and the committee looked at I-1, some people on that committee remembered that Leidexon was left out. And so that's why they became the #1 priority. What we're actually doing is taking care of a prior commitment. Everyone else was able to take part in it, but Leidexon didn't. So in a way, we owed it to the Leidexon community to upgrade their school. And if you look at Leidexon, it's in much needed repair. If you go inside their modules, they're certainly in dire need of repair and modernization. So it's not repaying certainly, but it's certainly taking care of business that we weren't able to take care of before.
And the cost for remodeling was not a part of the bid process because the commitment was to rebuild the school, the older buildings in the school. All right, the next question. How many students are being overflowed to other schools? And I'm assuming this is related to the Donlin E10 conversation or that slide. Currently, or at least in the last demographic projection, there were approximately 1,200 students that reside in the Donlin attendance area. Of those, I believe it's about 160 of them were not, elementary school students were not able to attend Donlin last year. And so those were overflowed to other schools.
And unfortunately, some families have been split. In other words, there was openings in a 2nd grade classroom at one school, 4th grade classroom at another school. So parents are making 2 different trips, sometimes 3, because their kindergartner can get in at Donlin. 2nd grader can't, 4th grader can't. They got to move. Sometimes we try to put them all at one school, but that's not always possible.
Which is why we ended up with the 2nd school there in the neighborhood, given the potential of Donlin to be able to house 600 students and the new school to be able to house 500 students. Then we're able to handle the capacity, the elementary school capacity within that, those 2 schools within the Donlin neighborhood, the attendance area.
I might want to add that Ahmed's also mentioned that we're going to have an administration building and a library and also an NP room. So it's completely separate school. And David, you might want to explain why you divided it up K3, TK3 and 4-5. Your rationale was perfect.
So we looked for property all across the northern area of Pleasanton. We're unable to find property that didn't include purchasing an existing building and demolishing that building, which was cost prohibitive for our solution. When the the decision was to look at the additional land off of Denker and Payne. We did talk about one big large school. We talked about a K-8 school. We talked about 2 K-5 schools on that same piece of property. And I referenced back to previous experience in another school district, very densely populated school district with not a lot of open land space. They resorted in similar ways, well before I was ever there, to placing 2 schools on a single piece of property. In each case, one of the schools was, known as the bad school, and the other school was known as the good school. And you can imagine that everybody thought the good school was the one that was shiny and new. And even though when you looked at the student academic performance, that wasn't always the case. Sometimes it was the existing kind of established school that was gaining better student achievement, but the perception was still the same in the community. And so, my contribution to the conversation was to make the suggestion that we look at building a facility that all kids would get the opportunity to go to. So they would start in TK through 3 and on the Donlin side of the property, and then transition to the Denker side of the property once they get to grade 4. So everybody benefits from the new construction in the neighborhood. Is that what you were looking for?
That's what I was looking for.
Okay, great. So the next question we have is $160 million has been issued thus far from Measure I-1, and that's true. $70 million from issuance A, and $90 million from issuance B, which was just this past August. And the way bonds work, a lot of people don't always understand this, but when a community passes a bond, the county doesn't just write a check for the total amount of the bond. In other words, the district didn't receive $270 million right after the bond passed in 2016. We had to go through a process of preparing to issue the debt. And that first set of dollars, the 70 million, actually came to the district in October of 2017. Once those dollars were in place, that starts the planning process for designing and building and submitting plans to the Division of the State Architect and all the other land use issues that you get to go to when you're building facilities. And so to date, most of the work, besides the COP payoffs, some technology and networking work and fencing work that we've done, the balance of that $27 million that we've spent thus far has gone towards architectural design processes. We talked about the big 5 projects left in Measure I-1. Those are starting 1 next month, 2 additional projects this summer, and the following, number 4 and 5, within the next year. Those projects total around $140 million of the 160 left of what's issued. And so even though it may not seem, we haven't seen tractors rolling down the streets, the background planning to prepare for those projects has been pretty intense. And that work is just now starting to kick off. We have 3 years from the time that we issue the bonds to expend 85% of those bond funds. And so the projects in issuance A should be wrapping up in 2020, this school year, and through the spring of next school year. And then we've got, again, those 3 years starting in August to finish up that second allotment of the $160 million. So hopefully, you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it, that the planning work is really critical in terms of being able to lay out the work, and the large 5 projects, once they get going, their cash flow needs are a lot different than when you're just starting and planning. And I think that with having the team starting to work on the big 5, we're going to have them work on the other projects around security and other network upgrades we want to do. So they'll start to be layered in as those projects go on. At every campus, we have projects that'll be happening.
Very good.
And I think just quickly, as a homeowner, you know yourself that when you plan to do, let's say, a bathroom remodel, it doesn't cost very much to plan. But when you start getting the contractor in there and start buying the material that you need, that's when your costs really go up. And that's what Huckman is actually saying to everyone right now, Dave, that once we start building, then you'll see unfortunately, the money will dwindle.
Well, I can take the next one.
You want to read it out?
Sure. Can you please explain how much of the damage shown is due to lack of deferred maintenance funds? This is actually a really good question. I think I would go back in a little bit of a history for some of our listeners, is that during the Great Recession, and this was back in 2008 and 9, the state of California had to take some drastic measures on being able to provide schools their funds to be able to operate. And so in order to do that, they made some critical changes. One of them was that they stopped their deferred maintenance matching funds. School districts were required to set aside a certain money every year for deferred maintenance, and the state would then match it, and together those funds would allow for the type of maintenance that you'd see with roofing, HVAC replacements, door hardware and such. And so without that matching funds and the flexibility of not putting those funds into those, many school districts had to protect core education, and so monies were reallocated. The second thing the state did is there's a requirement to set aside 3% of all expenditures on routine restricted maintenance. And again, the district, to allow districts greater flexibility, loosened that requirement for almost a decade, and just recently has brought that requirement back. And again, that routine restricted is more for the ongoing regular maintenance, being painting and maintaining your fields and such. So with those two funds dried up, districts really had to just patch and minimal repairs to keep things going. So a lot of the work that would have been done with this deferred maintenance money has now really is being pushed into a bond measure. So roofs have to get replaced. HVAC that should have been replaced a few years ago have been just repaired to operate, but now need to replace. It's really hard to put a full dollar figure on some of these, but we know that just alone the HVAC and mechanical are in the tens of millions of dollars, which is in our master plan report. But many of the major projects are going to be taken care of with the bond program, and with the routine restrictive funds being restored, we're going to start to see a better regular maintenance of our facilities as well.
I can state also that the board has been very clear to David and document that we need to start with the deferred maintenance budget that we need to see every year, so that we can do exactly what Ahmed has been talking about, is that keep everything up to date, keep like the beams at Pleasant Middle School painted or stained, and we're very clear on the direction that we've given Dave and Ahmed. In fact, they've come to us about, they are very clear what they want to do moving into the future, and that is to have a deferred maintenance amount that can take care of some of the maintenance items that we've been putting off through the years. And so we're very pleased to see us move in that direction, that we take care of the facilities that we have and the new ones that are coming online. We don't want to be back in this situation another 15 years from now.
So it's important that that maintenance plan includes upgrading plans for the future. And that's a part of the presentations that we're providing for the board. And we will share that information as it's developed with the community as well. We can't go back, we can't go to the community and ask for an investment in the schools unless we've got a plan to maintain those investments year after year after year. And so we take that responsibility seriously. Having said that, we can't not address the issues that we have, even though that there may have been issues in the past from the state or priorities set by the board to really focus the dollars to protect the instruction in the classroom. We've got to do both. So the next question, PMS is a direct result of needing finishes not being applied each year starting as far back as 2008. Is that correct?
Well, I can't tell you if the year is correct. I can tell you that when I was principal at PMS, every summer, and I remember the painter's name, would come and say, I'm doing your beams. And he had a group of college students that would assist. They weren't on the ladders. He was on the ladders, but they would restain those beams. And they probably haven't been restained. Unfortunately, it could be 208. I can't tell you the date, but what we're looking at now is taking care of them and then have a maintenance plan that tells you that every year or every 2 years, whatever we're told by the experts that they need to be done, that we're going to do. So we're not going to get into just reacting. We want to do preventive. In other words, have a plan that prevents all these items from happening again.
And I think it's somewhat easy to reach back and identify that, you know, things haven't been done or somebody should have. All those things are absolutely true, but the real question is, okay, what are we going to do about it now?
And I can tell you that the board at that time, many years ago, had to make decisions regarding program or maintenance, and because the funds were in dire straits, so they made those decisions not to cut programs. Should there have been a balance? I wasn't there then. I couldn't tell you.
Okay, great. Next question. Amador's theater belongs to the city. Why haven't they repaired it? I'm not going to try to answer that question for the city. The loss of the fire escape happened this year. And just like we do, the city, I believe, has a plan for how they invest funds in the ongoing upkeep of buildings. I don't think anyone anticipated that loss of the fire escape, which shut the upper level of the theater, was coming. And so now that it's here, the question is, how do we assist? And it's a collaborative process when we have multiple shared use facilities in this district, and we each take responsibility for the upkeep of those facilities. It's in our best interest to invest in the Amador Theater so that we can reopen the upper floor so that there's more people that can participate. When you think about it, Amador has a student population about 2,700 students, and 400 of those or more are engaged in the music programs. And currently only 400 seats are available in that theater. And so that means a lot of families are not able to join together and celebrate the performances that their students engage in. Same thing with the drama productions. And so in order for us to continue having an award-winning visual and performing arts program at the school site, we need to make sure that both there and at Amador, there's facilities that support that. And if that means collaboration with the city, we're all in. And if it means that we can look at other potential projects, find additional grants that could support the programs and or the facilities that support those programs, we need to look everywhere for the resources to make that happen.
And I can tell you that the district and the city, both of us are committed to working together. There's monthly meetings between the two councils. I can tell you that Dave meets routinely with the city. I know the city council also wants to work in collaboration with the school district. So the time is perfect.
Okay, next question. You indicated 43 from 100,000 for Measure M. I missed whether the current cost of I-1 was included in that amount. How do you want to do that?
The 43 for every $100,000 of assessed value is only for Measure M. Measure M and I-1 together in 2024 is about $88. There's a small set of bonds that are going to be paid off in the next few years. They'll drop off, and it'll be around $88, and that's an estimate. Hopefully, if the rates are lower, that would be a lower amount.
Okay, next question. What criteria are being used to select the measure projects?
So the district has put together a master plan and that master plan was recently updated in 2018. And many factors were looked at. We looked at issues of major repair and maintenance work. We've talked about the roofing and the HVAC. And every school was really thoroughly reviewed as to the needs of it. So all of the critical projects identified by staff in the community were in that report. In addition, we've identified the needs around capacity building, having enough capacity to handle our current and future enrollments. There are needs around 21st century learning. Measure I-1 is taking care of much of the portable classrooms that we have present. So that has been kind of our guide in the overall master planning. The master plan actually identified approximately slightly over $1 billion worth of work. So Measure I-1 is providing some of the critical projects that were identified by the board at that time. And then Measure M, which we now have on the ballot, will further those projects that have been identified. Again, we have gyms that are very dated. Some of our buildings are over 70 years old, and fields and drop off and pickup. And through an interactive process with the board, the project list was developed and placed on the Measure M ballot.
And many, as Ahmed said, many of these items were on the original project list prior to I-1. But as they started to minimize what they could do, many of them fell off. Not that they weren't needed, but they wanted to stay within the original money that they were proposing. So some of these projects are from that list, and they had to be taken care of back then, and now they need to be taken care of now.
All of the projects come from the facilities master plan document. And that is our forward planning document for all projects facilities. When we find additional dollars, there's a grant that's available, we look to that list to look for additional projects that we can accomplish. In 2018, when that list was updated, that project list grew just over $1 billion worth of work that was needed. So when it came time, 270 million of that was going to be attacked by Measure I-1. So when the board looked at a project list, a proposed project list, it was after staff had identified the highest priority projects. So as an example, the age of a roof that hadn't yet been repaired or an HVAC system, if it was over a certain number of years, then of course that project was prioritized higher than a roof that maybe is only 10 or 12 years old and has some life left in it, even though it's identified in the facilities master plan. Those projects that don't need to be addressed immediately were pushed further down the list. And so the board spent some time having those conversations, as did staff. And we will continue to go back to that facilities master planning document as we look at additional projects in the future. So the next question, what work will be done on the Amador large gym?
I think that's a good question, and it needs further analysis. We can look at modernization and repair, but we first have to look at the integrity of the building and its function and look at its life over the next 30 years. Some of these facilities have aged roof, HVAC systems, but also the structural system needs to be looked at. Amador Gym was built in the 1960s. And so we want to make sure that this gym is around for the next 40 to 50 years. So it could be an extensive repair, strengthening, and upgrading of all of its systems, or it could be a complete replacement and a new gym looking at meeting the needs of the Amador students into the next 40, 50 years.
I think that the steps in the process include should the dollars become available, is bringing in engineers to determine whether or not the bones of the structure can support a large-scale renovation. I think that's a big question that has to be answered first. It would be probably inappropriate for us to say we're just going to knock it down and rebuild it if it can be renovated and restored. Having said that, if the engineers come in and say, no, this has got to be taken down and rebuilt, we've got to be ready to pull that trigger as well. So another question. If there is no money available to repair either gym at Amador and no time for the union workers to do the repairs, why do you refuse to allow parent volunteers to do the extremely needed work? Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we do have for various projects parents who want to volunteer, and we have to really be careful in terms of that. In terms of we have rules and regulations in terms of who can work, how can the work be done. Division of State Architect obviously reviews these projects and plans. So again, it depends on the scope of the work. You know, we have many parents who volunteer with beautification projects and different things around the site, and we encourage that and really applaud it. But I think that the level of repair and work needed at Amador is probably beyond parent volunteer projects, but it's something that we really like and encourage and try to figure out ways to get our parents involved in our schools.
And there's law that we have to follow with regards to bidding projects and the selection of bidders. And so we also have contracts with our associations that don't allow us to reach out and just bring in a cheaper labor force just because we can. I mean, we are a public agency that works together with our associations to deliver excellent services to our students, both inside and outside of the classroom. And so maintaining those relationships and following the law, including the state laws regarding building and construction, is critically important for us. Next question. Can senior citizens on fixed income be exempt from this new tax?
So the requirements on the bond is that it's assessed on the assessed valuation, and there's no exemptions for senior citizens. If you have purchased your home many years ago, prior to Prop 13 and such, seniors will take advantage of the lower home assessed valuation. However, there is no exemption for this type of bond measure. There are senior exemptions for parcel taxes, but Pleasanton Unified School District does not have any parcel taxes.
All right. During the recession, if PUSD had done routine maintenance, how many more staff would have been laid off? That's a tough question, just because I don't know the answer to it. So we could look into it, but even if we do, I don't know that we can get to a specific number of staff that would have been laid off. I think that probably the easiest way to look at it is that as an example, when the district made decisions to maintain class sizes as opposed to growing class sizes during the economic downturn, that had a consequence. That meant money had to come from somewhere else. When they decided to keep science specialists and music specialists at the elementary schools and PE, that had a consequence because those dollars had to come from somewhere. And the board that was here at the time and the leadership of the district at the time prioritized maintaining those services to students. So it's not just how many, but it's what types of services might have been cut. You know, is it reducing counselors and vice principals and science specialists at the elementary? Some of the things that provide the high quality of education that is provided in this community. So I'm not going to fault a previous board or district leadership for making those decisions because I think they were trying to do what was in the best interests of the students and the families. But like all decisions we make, there's consequences. And we're dealing with some of those consequences right now.
if you wanted to, how many staff would we let go? There's no real answer to that, other than, let's say we put in deferred maintenance $800,000 a year. I'm just a number, 800,000 to $1 million. Well, you can imagine how many employees would have to be let go to make up that amount of money. And you can kind of figure that over the years. Let's say 10 years. I'm just taking a number, 10 years, $10 million. That is a lot of personnel that would have to be let go to make that kind of money during those times when money was very scarce.
Next question. If Measure M passes, how long will it be until another bond is asked for? I have no clue what the answer to that question would be. We do know what the needs are as identified by the facilities master planning document, but one of the things that might occur if the community determines to pass this particular measure is the state is also looking at reconstruction and modernization bonds. And any dollars that are provided to the district, whether it's in Measure I-1 or in Measure M, could then be used to leverage dollars from the state. And so depending on how many dollars we can leverage from the state and other grants, we would continue to make those investments using those dollars that are available to us.
Dave, is it true that if we don't have projects, or if we don't have projects that are at DSA, we're not eligible to receive funds back? In other words, the state's not going to say, Pleasant, would you like to have $100 million?
We have to have project submitted to DSA, and we have to go through their approval process for matching funds. So without the bond dollars, and there is no matching funds, so the state isn't, they're usually 50-50, 40-60 type of program. So if you don't have the bond dollars, you will lose out on the state funds.
So unfortunately, Dave, we can't say, we're thinking of building the gym. Could you give us money? It doesn't work that way.
Well, they wouldn't give us money for the project unless the matching dollars were available and the plans had been approved. All right, next question. Can you confirm we currently pay $64 per 100,000?
Correct. That the current bond measures the district is repaying, which is Measure I-1 and some combined Measure A and B, which is from 1988 and 1997, total to about $64. In the next 2 years, we're going to have about $20 fall off the tax roll, because some of those older bonds are going to have to be paid off, and then by 24, an additional $3 to $4 will also fall off. So those are older bonds that are coming off of our tax rolls. By 24, it will be, if without Measure M, it will be about $43.
Okay. Next question, and we're getting down to about 6 minutes left here. If the community supports Measure M because we want another high school, if it passes, is it guaranteed that a high school will get built? If you look at the language of the resolution, I think it's a 14-page document. There are several bullets in there that address increased capacity. In our facilities master plan and in our conversations with the project list at the board dais, we proposed a new small specialty high school that Mr. Maher talked about just earlier tonight, that would house about 600 to 700 students. We're talking about a CTE type high school, but very high tech CTE. We're not talking about replacing our excellent ROP programs. We want to continue those programs at the comprehensive high school. This would be a specialized high tech high school that would be linked to industries in the Tri-Valley, with the goal of building internships and apprenticeships for students who want to go into the high tech fields. It will not be a comprehensive high school, as Mr. Maher said. So this is for a specific type of student who's looking for a grades 9 through 12 learning experience that really focuses on the things that they want to do when they leave high school. And so although there's going to be decisions that are made by a board in the future once that's planned, I can speak for our board right now, and I can speak certainly for myself, that goal of developing that small specialty high school is a priority for the board. And while other folks may come in and other decisions might get promoted, I can't see us walking away from that plan, because we have, I guess the other option would be, because the bond language does say increased capacity, I guess we could use those dollars and put more buildings at Foothill and Amador, but I can't imagine that the community and or the board members would be excited about making those schools larger. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, without being able to promise the outcomes of other people's decisions, I know that we are firmly committed to that concept of building up that school.
And that's really what's best for kids. And if you go back to what is best for students or children, then we need to look at that other high school, because there are a large segment, at least 600 to 700 students, I'll guarantee you, that would like to be enrolled in this type of program. Even if they were able, let's say they attended Amador for part of the day and came over for part of the day. They're looking for this type of avenue to increase their education. And that's what we hear from them, and we hear from parents. And so we're committed to looking at this. Again, we could be off the board, Dave could be another job, it could, be 5, 6 grandbaby, whatever. But so who knows, what will happen. But the current board is committed to it, and so is Dave.
So with Measure M, is that a net change of about $26, an add of $26 from what we're paying today?
Yes, that is correct for the fiscal year 2022. As I explained earlier, we do have 2 bond measures that are coming off of the rolls. Once those come off the rolls, the net increase is going to be $26. And because we're Measure M bonds will be sold in 2022, the net add will be around 26. By 2024, it'll be around, the net add will be actually around $23. And if the interest rates by which we sell those bonds are less than what we have indicated in our assumptions, then that net increase can even be lower.
So if you look at people that are seniors and have a fixed income, if they're under Prop 13, the assessed value of their house could be a lot less than, let's say, a newer family. So for instance, myself, my assessed value is probably $300,000, which means I would be paying an additional $60+ a year. And hopefully most seniors are in that type of situation where their assessed value is much lower than the younger neighbors. And so although they would have to pay more, we're not going to hide that fact, but it would not be as much, because it goes on, as David said before, it's the assessed value.
Okay, one last question. What's going to happen if this doesn't pass with the Amador condition, with the condition of the Amador gym? Take that one off.
Yeah. Well, we always do our best to make sure our facilities are safe and functioning, and we keep putting Band-Aids and patching, and we'll keep doing that. We'll make sure that those buildings stay open. However, there are challenges similar to what we saw at the theater at Amador, where it had significant egress issues, and the balcony had to be closed. We hope we don't get there with any of our facilities, but long-term neglect can sometimes result in very dire consequences. And I hope that we don't have to go there.
And as a board member, we're always told, would you look to the future? And that's what we're doing, trying to look to the future that will best serve our students and the needs of our students.
Ultimately, that's for all of us who have been entrusted with the leadership of this district. It's to not just look at the things that are in front of us today, but to plan for the future. Why we're here tonight. And with that, we're going to close. We have a couple more questions that we will add to an FAQ. And if we do additional webinars, we can keep that FAQ moving. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you, Mr. Maher, Mr. Sheikh Islami, and thank you everybody for watching.
It's been a pleasure.